A lot of the people that I do ministry for are 18 and 19-year-old kids that have never left home before and missed their mothers. So it is definitely a rewarding thing to see them transition from civilian individual to soldier, and I help them through that process.
Hello, this is Pastor Terry Goodman, and I want to welcome you to the Wesleyan Connection. This podcast is primarily for the clergy and laity of the Holston Annual Conference. Join with me now as I take a look around the Connection and share some of the things happening in the churches of our annual conference. Good morning. I want to welcome you to this edition of the Wesleyan Connection podcast. This is Terry Goodman. I'm your host, and I hope that by now my voice has become a familiar one to you. Every Wednesday morning, 8 a.m., it's my goal to have another podcast up for you. An interview with someone in the Holston Conference, talk with someone that relates to our annual conference, a local church pastor, lay folks in the church. It's hard telling who you're going to be listening to when you tune into this podcast each week. Today has a very special podcast, I think. It's another one of those podcasts that comes from my recent excursion to annual conference, and this one is with an Army chaplain. I noticed that, I believe it was Monday, there were quite a few folks running around, shall we say, in fatigues and so forth, and I managed to find one that was more than willing to talk with me about the role that he does in the United States Army. His name is Chaplain Ryan Davenport, and he is a elder in the Holston Conference, yet he's serving in this specialized ministry, and I hope that you will find this conversation to be enlightening, especially if you're not familiar with what a chaplain does and how a chaplain relates to the people that he or she serves. I did notice that there was also an Air Force chaplain. Didn't get a chance to speak to her. She does many of the same things, but relates, I believe, in a different way than an Army chaplain does, or even a Navy chaplain. They all sort of have a unique relationship with the troops. And so I hope you enjoy this particular conversation with Chaplain Ryan Davenport.
I'm here talking with Chaplain Ryan Davenport, U.S. Army, and I'm doing a podcast called The Wesleyan Connection. It talks about the churches, the ministries, the people, the activities of the Holston Annual Conference. And you have a unique ministry. Are you related to the Holston Annual Conference?
Yes, sir. I'm an ordained elder in the Holston Annual Conference. I served 5 years in the local church, and I sessioned on active duty, became a chaplain about a year and a half ago.
So what is it like being a chaplain in the Army?
Well, it's definitely a rewarding ministry. Where the soldiers go, the chaplain goes. Where the soldiers are, the chaplain is. And it's rewarding to see lives change. You walk in the room, it's kind of a breath of fresh air for soldiers, and to be with their families. It's definitely a rewarding ministry.
So are you assigned to a specific group, or do you just go, how does that work?
So Army chaplains are assigned initially to a battalion. So right out of the chaplain schoolhouse, you are given an assignment to a battalion.
How many people are in a battalion, roughly?
Anywhere between 1,000 to 1,500 people. DOD civilians, DA civilians, families, babies, soldiers, officers enlisted, contractors, anywhere between 1,000 to 1,500.
So you relate not just to the soldiers, but to their families and to all the other people related to that battalion.
That's correct, yes.
How do you do that?
Lots of hours and lots of steps with your feet. So I'm on the ground quite a bit. So it's called Muddy Boots Ministry. You get out of the office and you get out and about.
Okay, is there a chapel or a worship center associated with each battalion?
Well, battalions don't have chapels, but the post has chapels, and we're assigned to a post to preach a worship service on Sundays.
You say you go with them wherever they go, so that means if they're deployed to Iraq or Germany or anywhere in the world, you go where that battalion goes.
That's exactly right, yes.
So, and you're the only chaplain for that battalion?
Yes, there's one chaplain in every battalion. Ideally.
That sounds like a 1,500 member church. And do you get any assistance or people to help you out?
Most chaplains have a chaplain assistant that is enlisted. Battalion level chaplain assistants are usually E4s, specialists, or E5 sergeants that kind of do all the grunt work for the chaplains. They're kind of behind the scenes getting things done to free him up or her up to go out and about and be with the soldiers, do a ministry of presence.
How, ministry is ministry in one sense, but in your situation, ministry is a lot different than the local church. What surprised you or what caught you off guard when you went from the local church into the chaplaincy?
I have a different congregation every single day. That's the difference. So in the local church, it's typically the same faces you see every single week. In the Army, it's different faces, especially in my situation. I'm in a training battalion that trains AIT and basic training soldiers. So there's always cycling through and turnover, and so I'd see new faces about every cycle and every other month. So and plus the permanent party people are there, but seeing new faces, so it's a different type of congregation.
So you are ministering to persons that are themselves going through a transition. They're going through a learning phase in their career?
Yes. A lot of the people that I do ministry for are 18 and 19-year-old kids that have never left home before and missed their mothers. So it is definitely a rewarding thing to see them transition from civilian individual to soldier, and I help them through that process.
Well, I want to thank you for the service you do on behalf of the Kingdom and the Army, and thank you for the service you do in the Army as well.
God bless you. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
This is Pastor Goodman. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Wesleyan Connection. Be sure to check back often for more podcasts.